Greetings, fellow Earthlings, and welcome to Tales from the Hoop, a podcast dedicated to diving into the weird, wild, and wacky stories from basketball history. I am your host, Ricky Freck, and today I'm going to start the story of our first ever multi part episode with my brother.
Laser Dave.
All right, Dave, first of all, I have a couple questions before we start off here first. Do you think we should add music to the intro? I feel like that's a thing people
Ooh.
do, but I'm not a musical person, so I'm asking you because I know you know everything about music.
I am not only a producer myself.
A producer of music.
Correct, yeah.
What music have you produced? Can you produce a song for this podcast?
I was kidding, but I
Oh,
can find a way to make. I've got producer friends. I can figure out something. Maybe
okay. Look at you. Wow.
pay somebody, a local artist, some you know trade favors or something. I'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll get some music.
Trade favors. What
I got
kind of
this.
favors? Is it
Uh,
anything untoward?
no, I was thinking like offer them um, like a pottery lesson or something. Something that
Oh,
I know how to
no,
do, I can teach them, and
that's
then they
code,
can.
everybody. That's code.
All right. Yep. I guess I walked into that one.
Okay, so do you have any guesses on what you think this multi-part episode is going to be? I told you before we recorded that it's probably going to be like maybe 6 or 7 parts. It's going to be a long one, folks, so strap
Yeah.
in.
You did tell me like right before we were jumping in that it was gonna. So I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but my guess is gonna be that it's about or centered around the ABA. I saw you recently reading a book about the ABA, so I feel
Hmm.
like maybe you got some ideas from that and
Who knows? Who can say? Who
did
can
some
say?
research.
All right, let's go ahead and jump in here, see if Dave is correct.
All right.
He's apparently been stalking me, watching me read books. Who knew? Who knew that was
Okay.
happening? He
We were
doesn't even, we don't
spending
even live in the same city, and somehow he
we
must have installed a camera in my house.
we did spend quality time together on vacation
Oh
recently.
yeah, I forgot about that. All right. Yeah, if I've made, hopefully by the time this goes out, I'll have made our new YouTube channel. You can see the video of this. So you can see my sunburnt head, which my scalp is currently bleeding because sunburnt was really bad. If you're balding,
You
everybody out there, this is not an ad for Hims, although maybe it should be. If you don't want to risk having a bald, sunburnt head, one, wear a hat. Two, use Hims to grow your hair back.
you did
Um,
crush that volleyball game though, so I think it was worth it.
I almost ripped both of my calf muscles playing in that volleyball game. They hurt really bad for like 2 days.
Yeah, we're getting old.
Despite, I mean, I work out pretty constantly, but not constantly, but consistently is the word I'm looking for. However,
Not
I
working
don't
on
do a
your
lot of
jumping
jumping
enough.
anymore. I'm
Yeah.
36, going on 37. I don't do a lot of jumping these days. I'm afraid to. I do a lot of squatting, a lot of bench press. Hey, let me tell you this, Dave, before we jump in. Guess who hit 240 bench press for five yesterday? Hello. Okay.
I thought you benched a lot more than that.
I'm trying to work my way up to 300. So my
Haven't you
current
hit 300 before?
no, my current all-time lifting max, which I'm sure everyone listening to this really cares about, is 275.
I think we should. Uh, I want to hear from our listeners what their max bench is, and then see if we can beat it.
Okay, I'll put a poll on Spotify. Please tell us your max bench. If you can beat me, congratulations. You're
Yeah,
stronger than I am. I
I
I,
like that.
I usually try to track my bench progression by how many players at the NFL Combine I could beat, and generally
Hmm.
it's the punters.
Yeah,
You know,
I want to make a commitment to our fans that we will be able to beat their max bench press.
oh, don't I don't think that's. I mean, maybe if like Sean, who I know is your friend and might listen, I can beat him in a bench press, but I don't want to put that out there.
I do.
Okay,
I'm
well,
ready.
hey,
You're gonna do all the heavy lifting, but literally the heavy
okay,
lifting.
thank you.
Sorry.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, in September 1926, Dennis
Oh,
Arthur Murphy was
so not the
born
ABA.
in Shanghai, China.
Hmm. Okay.
His father worked
Love
for a
it.
company called Standard Oil in Shanghai, but the family moved back to the United States in 1940, the year before the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Oh, okay.
Soon after I'm assuming soon after the bombing, I didn't actually write that part in, but soon after they moved back, at least, Dennis joined the military. He served in World War II and attained the rank of staff sergeant. He came back from the military and joined the reserves and eventually made the rank of captain by the end of the Korean War.
Okay.
So, military guy, he then used the GI Bill to attend USC, where he majored in, any guesses?
Um, um, Culinary.
Culinary. You think he majored in culinary?
General studies.
He majored in economics.
Dang.
He
Smart
was
guy.
he was the mayor for Buena Park in Orange County for 1 year in the late 1950s, and around that time also became a marketing executive for one of California's largest civil engineering firms.
Okay. Okay.
During that period, he met former USC quarterback Jim Hardy. And no, I'm not turning this into a football podcast, don't worry. Who happened to be a close personal friend of future Oakland Raiders owner Al Davis.
Oh yeah. That's the guy with the haircut.
I think you've just described every human on earth. So that doesn't help me much.
I was trying to be polite. He's got a unique haircut. Is it the current
Okay,
owner?
so no. So you are thinking of his son.
Okay, okay.
Yes, his son does use a bowl cut that his mother still cuts for him, I'm sure. Al Davis's dad is well known for having like big glasses, wears a lot of jewelry, I believe, and is absolute was he's passed away now. I don't know Al Davis's exact history, so I don't know if that's an unfortunate or a fortunate thing. But he was well known for recruiting speed over not recruiting, signing speed over everything else, and being like
Okay.
very involved in who the Raiders drafted.
Okay.
All right, so Hardy, the quarterback, and Murphy, the former guy in the military, got together and tried to bring a professional football team to Anaheim, and they wanted to join the AFL. Now, the reason they wanted to do this was not so much that they liked football. I mean, they did, but they knew that the NFL and AFL were nearing a merger. And if they had a team in Anaheim, they would make a bunch of money when either the teams merged and they brought in then they would own an NFL team, or the league would have to buy them out of their team so that, so they didn't have a competition.
Yep.
So they were trying to make a team in Anaheim. They had a couple of exhibition games. Unfortunately, the AFL and NFL merged a few weeks before they could get everything in order, and that ended the dream of a new football team, but not the desire of to own a pro sports franchise.
Ooh,
Here is
interesting.
Dennis Murphy in his own words describing his thought process after that. Okay, you're back. Sorry, I paused because you paused. He said, "I thought there's only one basketball league and one hockey league, so why not have another? Since I knew nothing about hockey, but basketball was my favorite sport, I figured I'd pursue the idea of a basketball league. That was the reasoning. I liked
Let's
basketball.
go.
What?
I said, let's
No.
go.
I liked basketball better than hockey. No surveys or anything like they do today. The NBA only had 12 teams in 1966. It seemed like there should be more teams. Why? I don't know. It was worth a shot."
I mean, there is something to be said about, just like, is this product fully tapped?
Yeah.
And like, if the only way to find out if it is or not is to keep tapping it, and then, like we're seeing it with the Live Golf Tour,
Mm.
and I think they're going to start doing that with a lot of different sports. Like, let's just see if this is all that we can get out of it, and if we can, you
When
know,
you say that you think they're doing it with other sports, are you implying that you think there's going to be like another like basketball league?
oh, maybe not basketball, but definitely like they did it with soccer, right? They got Ronaldo to go play in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a swing at like football
So you don't
or
necessarily mean
baseball.
in America. You just mean like sports in general.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think back in the day it was more America, but like I think now that sports are so global and everything is
Yeah.
online and easily accessible, like if you have the money, why wouldn't you offer Luca $100 million a year to start a new
Yeah.
league, and
I
be
I
the
mean I
face of
always
it? And
I always wondered about that. Like, would how much money would you have to offer LeBron at his peak to go play for Barcelona
Yeah.
or Real Madrid?
I mean, but
Because
like
they can offer more, I think.
you could do the MLS thing and wait till they're at the end of their peak too, and they're
I
still
mean, that's what Dwight Howard did. That's what, I mean, they didn't, I don't think he made as much money as he could have if he'd gone at his peak, but
yeah.
he did go play in China for a bunch, not a bunch of money, but for money. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I guess there is still like, they still try to make off-season football leagues, right? Like the XFL, The Rock's still trying to make that happen, I think.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they just all fail now. I feel like the leagues are so entrenched in America that I don't think, I don't know.
I do think you have to really commit for like a longer period of time than anybody probably wants to. Like you have to
Mm,
basically say we're going to lose money in order to gain market share for, you know, as long as it takes to become either like well known enough that we're profitable or whatever.
yeah.
And they all just probably assume it's going to be shorter than it actually would be.
I also wonder, and we'll probably talk about this in a future episode, but you couldn't, like, let's just take the NFL for example, right? If The Rock is like, oh, I'm making my own league, if I'm making the XFL happen for real this time, guys, he's not going to like offer Patrick Mahomes more money to jump leagues, or even like, let's not say Patrick Mahomes, let's say who's like the sixth best quarterback that's still
Um,
pretty young, right? Like,
Joe Burrow.
oh wow, that's so rude to Joe Burrow, sixth best quarterback.
Oh, so you know what?
Justin
Actually,
Herbert. Justin Herbert is a
that's
perfect
a better
example.
answer.
Let's
I
say,
was thinking fantasy wise, just to be clear. Joe
oh,
Burrow, I think, is a better than sixth, but I was thinking, I literally was reading fantasy rankings this morning and
oh,
he was
okay,
at like 5, 6. That's why I said that. I'm so
fair.
sorry, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is a perfect example. Let's say, could they offer Justin Herbert enough money where he would consider jumping leagues? I don't think so. I think there's too much prestige now in playing for a league that
Yeah.
I just don't see a lot of people ever making a jump. And we've never really seen a guy jump to any of these other leagues past like what 19 the 70s or
Yeah.
the 80s, I guess. With when was Donald
I mean,
Trump
it
trying
just
to be in
happened with
the
golf and soccer. Like we,
soccer's different. Soccer is very different to me
yeah.
because they jump to league. They jump leagues all the time. It's such a global sport, right? I guess
But
that what you're saying is that like no one's going to jump to the XFL, but someone might jump to the German football league.
yeah. But like uh golf is steeped in tradition and those players had no problem just being like, well, they pay me this. So
Yeah,
my guess would be that it's a league in a like a really nice to live country
yeah.
and a lot of money and even like ownership stake in the league and or
Mm,
team, and that would draw either older players or like I remember thinking there will never be a superstar player. This is like 2012. I thought there will never be a superstar player that doesn't sign with Nike in the
mm,
NBA.
yeah,
And now you've got, multiple people on New Balance, there's people on Converse,
yeah.
and those people are getting better like deals than just the money that they would make. Maybe not better, but Nike just says we'll give you X amount of dollars per
Right.
year. These people are like, we'll give you 5% of everything your shoe, which
Well,
Nike would never do. But
two comments. First, you sign with Converse and you have to wear the poop shoes, SGA's poop shoes. But also, the real reason I think that everyone's falling away from Nike doesn't have anything to do with the money. It's because Nico left.
oh yeah, that's a great point. But I do think that like when a league or brand is at its peak, quote unquote, that's when they're like most vulnerable for people to attack and be like,
Yeah, that's fair.
you think you're riding high on your laurels when really you need to be staying competitive.
Yeah, I almost
Now,
made a challenge joke, but I'll save that for myself because I think
my
only you
guess
and I would get it.
if another basketball league does start, my guess would be that they bring in a bunch of, mid-level talent
Yeah,
and it doesn't go as well as they think that it will, and then there's some ultimate like buyout or merge or whatever, but
right.
I think it could happen.
All right, so let's go ahead and finish this quote from Dennis Murphy. He said, "It seemed like there should be more teams. Why? I don't know. It was worth a shot. What the hell? The AFL had worked, hadn't it? They got a merger. Maybe we could force a merger with the NBA.
That's a terrible plan.
All right, so Murphy, he turned to another USC contact, a guy named Bill Sharman. He was previously the coach at Cal State Los Angeles, after he'd been coaching Long Beach, which is a team in the American Basketball League, which had just folded a year prior. So people had already tried to make another basketball league before, of course, and it had not worked out, partially because the NBA just was not really that popular at the time. Like basketball was the third sport, and they didn't get on TV a lot unless it was like Wilt Chamberlain versus Bill Russell. So it was just very hard to like make a league work. Um, at first, Murphy wanted Sharman to be the front man. He was a known name in basketball circles and would give them credibility. So they wanted a guy who people knew, who could be their guy. That he'd be the commissioner or whatever, and he could get up in front of crowds and be like, "Hey, we're legitimate, right?" Then Bill Sharman was offered the head coaching job for the San Francisco Warriors, and he bailed. However, yeah, however, his contribution was not finished. He did have some part to play in the ABA still. Sharman had a few suggestions for what the fledgling league should do. First, he thought they should use the three-point shot, which had been pretty popular in the ABL. However, his most important contribution was that he told Murphy and the rest of the crew that they should call up a guy named George Mikan, who is a name you know, hopefully.
He was a multi-time champion with the Minneapolis Lakers.
Correct. So for much of the early days of basketball, Mikan was often seen as the best player.
Yeah.
He only spent 7 years in the league, but he captured 5 league titles and led the league in scoring 3 times. The NBA, which formerly was known as the BAA, didn't name an MVP until 1956, or else he'd probably have 5 or 6 of those as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's like. I've always thought about Mikan if Bill Russell didn't exist,
Yeah.
that Mikan would be seen as like that's who we named the trophy after. It just so happens that like at the end of his run, someone started a better run.
Yeah.
But like he had the best run of any player up until that point.
I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here
Uh-oh.
and say that if they had paid players very well back then, George Mikan would not be a big deal because Bob Kurland would have taken a spot. But
Yeah, well,
Bob Kurland
who's that? So
he won 2 national championships with Oklahoma State, and then instead of playing in the
God.
NBA, decided to go play in the AAU for the Phillips 66ers. You know that, right? That the AAU used to be like a semi-pro league, not like a only for high schoolers league.
No.
Oh yeah, so it used to be like teams would form around jobs. So like you would play for the Phillips 66ers, but you also worked for them.
That's awesome.
So that was how a lot of people used to play back in the day and still make a bunch of money. Not a bunch of money, but a decent.
A regular salary plus. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we might have to talk about that league someday. But for now, let's just stick with the ABA. So Mikan was essentially the guy at the time in basketball circles, right? Like obviously at this point, Wilt and Russell are still a thing, are not still a thing, are a thing. They're like the biggest draw, but people were like, "Oh, George Mikan, that's a real guy," right? Like we know this name, we can recognize him. He would be a good face of the league. So when Murphy got a hold of Mikan, the big guy had already been talking to a guy named Connie Sheridan, I don't know how to pronounce it, who was a New York advertising man that was also working on a league. Get this. He wanted to start a league for players that were 6'4" and under. No talls.
Okay.
No talls allowed here.
No talls.
So I guess maybe he was a short guy and he was mad that all the big guys were taking over. Of course, you'll note that you've never heard of the 6'4" and under league, and that's probably for a very good reason because it didn't take off.
I kind of like it, but
so Sheridan and Murphy joined forces. They scrapped the 6'4" and under league, and we're going to just focus on this one league together. And Sheridan was a bit sketchy. He was kind of, he'd always promise the world and then not really deliver, constantly being like, hey, let's make this happen, and then wouldn't put up the money. but
Okay.
he
Yep.
did eventually help them set up an office in Orange County, and they brought in a young lawyer named Gary Davidson. Now, in some history lessons about the ABA, Gary Davidson is listed as a founder of the league, but he really wasn't that involved, except for he got the group in touch with a team in Dallas. And by team, I don't mean a sports team. I mean like a team of investors, which, as we'll talk about soon, proved to be very important. So from there, they had Murphy, they had Sheridan and his crew, they had Davidson and the group in Dallas, and things started to slowly snowball. Murphy brought in a guy named Gabe Rubin, who was involved with the Pittsburgh Pipers in the ABL, excuse me, which we have previously mentioned before. Do you remember anything about the Pittsburgh Pipers?
No.
Connie Hawkins played for the Pittsburgh.
That's it. I was gonna say. I know it's a player, but yeah.
And Art Kim, who was part of the Washington Generals. Do you know about the Washington Generals?
Yeah. Honestly, I've always thought about the Washington Generals that they should have just like kept that name. I'm sure that that team got sold and then like the Bullets became a different thing or whatever, but I don't know why the Washington team isn't called the Generals. You know what I mean?
Are you being funny?
No. I'm an idiot. I don't.
The Washington Generals are the team that always loses to the Globetrotters.
Oh, okay.
They're the
Well,
patsy team.
it's a great name.
It is a
I
good
mean,
name. Yeah, unfortunately not
they should
owned
steal
by
it.
not owned by the Bullets. Eventually, they had 10 owners ready to put down some real money and make this thing happen. So I'm just going to read out the list of owners and where their locations were.
Oh
It
God.
doesn't super matter, but just for posterity, here it is. So we had Art Kim, who was going to run the team in Anaheim, Arthur Brown in New York, the DeVoe family in Indiana. Gabe Rubin was, of course, in Pittsburgh, T.C. Morrow in Houston, Joe Gregory in Kentucky, Ken Davidson in Oakland, Charlie Smither in New Orleans, Bob Folsom in Dallas, and Larry Shields in Minnesota.
I mean,
Now
they
you
did
might
their best to spread that out. That's
now you might be wondering, Minnesota, that's a weird one. Uh, but that was actually one of the most important teams for the final piece in the puzzle, George Mikan. The owners wanted him.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, so he was living in Minnesota. He had a job working as a travel agent. He owned a travel agency in Minnesota, and he refused to move anywhere else.
Okay.
All right, so here is how Murphy put it. And just, I forgot to say this for the first one, but every quote here, and really a lot of this research comes from the book Loose Balls by Terry Pluto. It's not about pornography, as you might assume, or old men. It is instead about the ABA. So here is what Dennis Murphy had to say about George Mikan in the book Loose Balls. George didn't agree to be commissioner until 10 minutes before the start of the press conference we had set up at the Summit Hotel in New York to introduce the league to the media.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm a fan of that negotiating tactic. Just wait until we're going public in front of everybody and say, I'm not saying yes unless you give me a team and where I want it.
Okay. George wanted a 3-year deal at $50,000 a year, and he was hanging tough.
Dang.
Some of the owners felt that he had put a gun to their heads about the money.
It's like $700 million in inflation.
Yes, exactly. Not even close. He made it clear that he didn't need us. He lived in Minnesota. In the end, George got what he wanted. And to George's credit, he saved that first press conference. We had about 50 media people there. I had arranged press conferences before because I had worked in various political campaigns in California, but I had never seen anything like this. The press conference was, of course, Connie Sheridan's idea, and it was heavy on, and I don't know what this word means, it was heavy on the schmaltz, which I assume just...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Schmaltz to me is like moxie, like you're really selling stuff.
Okay. So they had stars like Frank Gifford. You know Frank Gifford?
No, never heard of him.
Never heard of him. We had girls in hot pants handing out drinks and press releases.
Schmaltzy.
And we gave away red, white, and blue basketballs. But the thing also started to look like a zoo, and we were probably going to get ripped in the press. George sensed we could be in trouble. He said, quote, "This is all a bunch of crap. I'm going to get up there and run this show." And that's exactly what he did. I'm convinced that we would have died at that first press conference without him. Let's face it, when a guy who was the greatest basketball player of his era, a guy who is a successful businessman, and importantly, a guy who was 6'10" with the charisma of Mike and stood up and spoke, people listened.
Very
So
cool.
with that, the ABA is officially formed. And as I mentioned there, they had a couple gimmicks, right? We talked about the 3-point line, but you might be wondering, why did they actually choose the red, white, and blue ball? Any guesses?
I mean, it's a way to differentiate,
Yeah.
and so you want to do something different. I mean, it's the American Basketball Association,
Whoa, hey, look at you. All right, so
right?
it's actually pretty simple. The league used a multicolored ball because Mikan told them to. Now, it's a bit more in depth than that. The big guy said, quote, "I had a personal beef about the brown ball. I remember sitting up in the balcony at some NBA games, and I just couldn't see the darn thing that well.
Hmm.
The arenas were darker than they are now." And when I say now, just so we're clear, anytime I'm like refer to the present, what I actually mean is like 1991,
Okay.
because that was when this book was written. So any quote is that I say now is the early 90s. And the ball just sort of blended into the background. When you watched a basketball game on television, that dirty brown ball didn't show up very well. I said, "What's the name of the league? The American Basketball Association? Okay, so what are America's colors? Red, white, and blue.
There
So
you go.
why not a red, white, and blue ball?"
Genius, truly.
The owners acted like I wanted to burn the flag. I did a lot of research and showed that there were over 50 different shades of brown used over the years in college and pro. Hell, the original NBA ball was the color of cowhide. It was off-white. I said, "Let's be creative and dye the damn thing." That was when that was something you could see from the balcony, and you could see it on television. When you shot it, it left a red, white, and blue streak, like a rainbow.
I don't know about the rainbow, but I do think that, especially if I'm thinking about how the product's going to look on TV, and you probably could have picked like different colors for sure,
Mm,
but like it's just good to mix it up, I think.
yeah. And it's been pointed out several times that it's kind of surprising the NBA didn't adopt a different colored ball after a while because of the TV stuff, but that uh, people in the book were often quick to note that they use the 3-point contest, the money ball
Oh yeah.
used to be red, white, and blue. I think now it's green for Sprite, but
Oh
it
God.
looks good, and so they used it. But and also I didn't put it in here, but there the one of the ways they were like, "Oh, we could have made a ton of money," was if they had been able to trademark the ball, but you can't trademark a color. So they trademarked the color scheme with the ABA logo, and then
Mm,
people would just make red, white, and blue balls and sell them without the logo,
yeah,
and they didn't make any money.
that's
Um,
tough.
and while there weren't any technical differences in the grippiness of the new balls, there was at least one problem with the ball during the preseason.
Is it? Do we
Here,
have a deflate gate?
pretty close. Here's a quote from Denver coach Bob Bass. "While I was coaching Denver, we had our first preseason game in Tucson, and no one had a red, white, and blue ball. We couldn't play with a brown ball because this was the first game in the history of the Denver franchise, even if it was an exhibition. So some genius got the idea of taking a brown ball and spray painting it red, white, and blue.
Heck yeah.
Let's just say that made the ball a little slick. There were 44 turnovers in the first half."
I love that.
Uh,
That
all
I
right.
mean, that's kind of a that could be like maybe not for the All-Star game,
Mhm.
but a slippery ball would be a really fun I think we could incorporate that somewhere in All-Star weekend.
A slippery ball?
Yeah, everyone plays a game with like maybe not like again, I don't know which team it is, but I think we should just try to make basketball a little more um difficult, you know,
What if there
or
was
add
so
certain rules each
yeah,
quarter. They
that's
got
not
to
a
spice it up.
so like you're saying we should make the All-Star game into like a roguelike video game where like if you do
Ooh,
certain stuff you get bonuses, if you do certain stuff you get uh
detractions.
detraction. I almost said minuses,
Yeah.
negatives.
Yes. I
So
like a
like
pros and cons game.
the issue there, I guess, is if it's like if you say, oh, okay, if you miss 5 free throws, you have to use a slick ball. Then how do they switch it out from position to position?
Slick ball is tough, but like raise the goal to 11
That
feet.
would be
You know,
awesome. That would be so funny. I would watch that.
I think there's some stuff we could get going.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I think
I
that's
think they
way better
won't
than
do it, but
that's way better than giving TNT a 45-minute
no,
presentation in the middle of the game. Yeah.
yeah, we can't. I don't think we're doing that again.
Okay, so eagle eared viewers who are paying attention might have noticed I just talked about a Denver team, and I did not mention a Denver team when I listed the first
Oh
10
yeah.
teams. Well, that's because there was a lot of moving around, as we'll talk about here in a
Mm,
second. There's a lot of teams flying every which way, but before the season started, the owners made the decision they wanted to draft every NBA player just in case somebody decided they didn't want to play in the
okay. I
NBA.
don't hate that. It's kind of funny.
We might talk about this later, but the ABA was famous for just like holding drafts.
Yeah,
They're just like, hey, you know what we should do? We need to draft
just in case.
every high school senior just in case. Let's
Yeah,
just draft them. Oh, you know what we got to do? We got to draft every college junior just in case.
yeah,
And they'd be like, oh, we really want this guy from a league. We should hold a draft. We're going to be the only team that drafts, but everybody's going to come and like hold a draft to draft players, right? There was not even hundreds, but dozens of drafts
yeah.
just
I
happening
actually
all the time.
think that would be a really fun game to play, like with the current NBA.
Mm-hmm.
If you were like drafting players, obviously based on how good they are, but also like, Jokic would be probably number one, if not, top three,
Yeah.
but he's like locked into a long-term contract. So would you take Luka over Jokic because he's only got 1 year left, and there's like a chance that he might come to your team. So having to factor in like not only how good they are, but what's the likelihood that they would leave the NBA? That's
Oh,
like a,
okay. I
a
see.
fun idea.
I thought you were saying the NBA team should do this. I was like, are you suggesting they should draft free agent classes?
No, I'm
But now I
talking
understand.
about if I'm the ABA
Yeah.
and I'm
Okay.
actually going through this, but I'm like, well, Bill Russell's been there a long time. He's never coming over.
Yeah.
Versus like, Wilt doesn't care about anything other than points. So
That's
I'd
so
probably
rude.
take Wilt
That's
over
so
Bill
he led
Russell.
the league in assists once. How dare you?
That's yeah. Sorry, anything other than stuff in his stat sheet.
Okay, that's right. And well, I guess you could count women as stuffing his stat sheet because he
Oh, okay.
famously also cared a lot about women. Um,
Oh God.
uh, Indiana executive. There's a lot of guys in this book named Dick, by the way, but Dick Tinkham, which is a great name.
Okay.
He said that the team took this draft very, very seriously. While the league hadn't played a game, surely it was just a matter of time before players jumped leagues. And to the league's credit, that wasn't a complete fantasy. Oakland owner Ken Davidson was friends with Pat Boone, who he brought in to join the franchise as like a president or like an executive type guy, right?
Okay.
And Boone happened to be friends with Bruce Hale, who you
Okay.
probably don't know, but you do know several members of his family because Bruce Hale, he was brought in to be the first coach. And no offense to his coaching accomplishments, he was a good coach. He coached at several schools we'll talk about in a second. But probably the most attractive thing about him is that he is Rick Barry's father in law. And he had
Okay.
coached the young star at Miami and Florida. Now, Miami University, not a Miami, not, I mean, obviously the Heat were not a team until like 1988 or whatever.
Yeah.
So Boone joined the team in exchange for $35,000 and a 10% stake in the team. He was the coach and the president. With that squared away, the team set its sights on Rick Barry. He was coming off the last season of his contract. However, so he was technically a free agent, sort of, because back in the day, the NBA had a built in feature to every contract called the option clause. Have you
Okay.
heard about this?
I know what like a current there's like player options and team options currently,
Okay,
but I have
yeah. So
yeah,
it's
no
it's
idea what that.
relatively similar. So this had never been challenged in court, but it gave teams the right to a player for a full year after their contract ended. So if you're Rick Barry and your contract is up, uh, you could not leave unless the Warriors said you they didn't want you, right? Like if they
Eh,
wanted you,
yeah.
you had to sit out for a year or not, or play with, you had to play with them or sit out for a year.
Yeah.
So
This is like a Rick Barry problem, right?
yeah,
Okay.
very
I think I
famous.
remember reading, I didn't know it was an option clause, but
Yeah.
sorry, you're probably going to get to it.
No, it's fine. The Oaks had offered Barry, they offered Barry $75,000 for 3 years and a 15% stake in the team. The Warriors offered him, I think it was a similar money deal, but obviously no percentage in the team.
Yeah.
And there was some rumors. Now, Rick Barry says this is not true, but there were some rumors that Ken Davidson, who was involved in the entertainment industry, had made Barry some promises that he would get him some acting gigs as well. Now,
I love that.
Barry says he didn't care about that, but it's a kind of a he said, she said type of thing, at least in 1991 when they were quoted for this. Maybe it has come out, and in my paltry research I did into this part that I'm now realizing I probably should have done, that did not come up. Okay, so he decided to sign with the ABA. So he became the first player to jump leagues. However, the judges ruled in the NBA's favor, and Barry was forced to sit out for the first year of ABA play. So he just did like he did some like recruiting, not recruiting, but what's it called? Like PR basically for the team. Like he did some announcing, some broadcasting, he did PR for the team, but he couldn't play for a full year. Now, what George Mikan had wanted to happen was for every ABA team to sign at least one NBA player so they could file a class action lawsuit, but the Oaks were the only team that were able to pull it off. So no one else brought in an NBA level player, or at least a player who was on an NBA contract.
Right, right,
And
right. Great
also,
job, everybody.
also, as I mentioned, before league play could start, several owners backed out, franchises moved around. That includes our guy, Dennis Murphy, the guy who all of this started with. Before the season started, he sold his shares of the Oakland franchise to Ken Davidson and Pat Boone. Despite being one of the early believers, he never actually owned a team when it played a game. A few other owners, most notably Gary Davidson and Don Reagan, sold their stakes, but it's fair to call those early days a whirlwind. Teams were moving around, owners were coming in and out. When it was clear they didn't have the money to keep up, it was just like, we're gone. People would be like, okay, you got to put down $500,000 right now. And people will just ghost it. They just leave, right? It's crazy. That said, it's worth noting that the Dallas franchise was in the best position, the Dallas Chaparrals.
Ooh, Chaparral. Never
They had a guy named Bob Folsom at the head of their group, and that group was worth $500 million, which is literally 10 times what most owners were bringing to the table. Okay. So most guys were in the $10 to $50 million range, and they were big time money.
Heck yeah.
However, despite having all that money in the Dallas franchise, things weren't exactly peachy. Here's a quote from Max Williams, who worked in the Dallas executive team. So when it came to putting together a team, we were a little behind because we messed up the college draft. In a sense, this tells you a lot about what was going on when Roland Speth was in charge. So he was formerly like the president, basically.
Okay.
Not of the United States, of the Dallas Chaparrals. The draft was coming up, and I made some calls to coaches I knew, did some checking around, got all the basketball magazines I could, and put together a draft list. I gave it to Speth and figured we'd talk about it in a few days. One day, Speth said to me, "Well, we've had our draft." I said, "What are you talking about?"
Love it.
He said, "It happened so quickly. They just said the draft was tomorrow. I couldn't find you."
Oh, God.
So I went to New York and I took your list along and I did the draft. Of course, the reason he went to the draft by himself was that Speth didn't want to spend the money to take me too. I said, "You should have taken me. You don't know anything about the players." He said, "Hey, I got the top 5 guys on your list." Great, right? Perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
all you need.
I said, "Speth, that wasn't a talent list.
Oh,
that was a list of players in alphabetical order."
Oh, God.
He said, "Oh, that was it. Oh." So the first draft pick in the history of the Dallas franchise was Matt H. from Minnesota State because his last name began with A. I couldn't believe it. It was going to be hard enough putting together a team without a stunt like this. I was really glad when Speth and those guys got out and Bob Folsom's group took over.
Dang. That is like a chronic mistake. It's also something I would do for sure. Like if my wife and I owned a team together, I would just be like, "Don't worry, I got it," and then
Not
I
have
would
it.
completely misread the context and screw it all up.
Yeah,
So,
it's a little different when it's like you forgot the grocery list compared to when you are drafting a
oh yeah,
professional sports team.
yeah, and
I mean,
it almost. I mean, I don't know how bad Matt H is. Sorry to any Matt H's out there, but like, it's almost if I'm another owner, I'm like, wait a second, what? Like, and
oh,
if
you
I'm the
take advantage of it.
commissioner, you should step in and be like,
Yeah, maybe
what?
that's yeah, that might be true. Yeah, it's like
That doesn't seem right.
I know we probably don't have a lot of Survivor listeners, but in season 1 of Survivor, there's a guy who used what he called the alphabet strategy, who voted out people in a very similar manner,
Yeah,
and then all the other players just used it to decide who they were voting out so they could like force him to vote for the players they wanted to vote out. So the alphabet strategy, whether it's in Survivor or professional sports, just really does not work out ever.
yeah, it's
Never
not a
use
good
that for
idea.
anything. All right, so teams are doing everything they could to get players. Open tryouts were a necessity, though most of them didn't bring in much talent. Instead, what the league often did, they bring in like 100 guys, right? And just cut them down. Nobody could really play. So instead, they went to AAU ball and to the Eastern League, which is essentially like the precursor to the D League or the G League as it's called now, right? This is like
Yeah,
they'd send people there to either get good or to learn more about the game, or if they were hurt. It's kind of just like the rookie, not the rookie league, the semi-pro league, basically.
semi-pro. Yeah,
Although I think they were all, I don't know if maybe they had jobs. I don't know. Coaches also scoured NBA rosters from years prior. So they were looking for guys who had fallen out of the league for one reason or another. Maybe they had had an injury. Maybe things just didn't work out. Maybe they were a head case. So they brought in guys like Wayne Hightower, who was a former 7th overall pick, and he got another shot. He was actually pretty good in the ABA, right? And they weren't
okay.
afraid to look at all comers. So it's pretty funny. Dallas coach Max Williams claims that the team received a letter from the state penitentiary in Oklahoma. A guy who was doing prison time claimed that the court told him they would let him out to play ball if he could get a
Heck yeah,
contract.
that's what's
Uh,
up. I love that.
fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, Williams passed on that deal. He did not take
Oh,
did
come
not take
on.
the
You
prisoner.
got to at least like test him out.
That's definitely like if in the movie version of this, which I know the movie Semi Pro exists, but there's a team we'll talk about later who like the fact that they're not a dark comedy biopic is a travesty.
Okay.
Like it has. I mean, I may like
You could start
just
writing it.
start
Yeah.
working the screenplay soon because it is an incredible story. There are also guys like Lefty Thomas who once dropped 39 points in an ABA game, but he played every game with a ring on his finger. On every finger, excuse me, every finger,
Oh,
all
okay.
10
I was like, that
had
doesn't seem
rings.
that weird. But
I mean,
yes,
it's pretty
that's
weird to have all 10. Another guy, Maurice Toothpick McCartley. Why do you think he's called Toothpick?
behind his ear.
He refused to enter the game unless he had a toothpick in his mouth.
What in the? That seems so dangerous. Like
Now
the
he,
one thing you shouldn't have in your mouth. You
yeah.
know?
So I wrote, granted, he averaged 15.3 points a game during his first season, but still, the health hazard had to give coaches pause.
That's crazy. Hey, if you can average 15 points, put him out there, I
You
guess.
do whatever you want. That said, my favorite story from those early days is a guy named A.W. Holt. Here's a story from Dallas announcer Terry Stembridge about Holt. Another one of my favorite guys was A.W. Holt, a kid from Jackson State, a left handed shooter. He went into Max's office to sign a contract, and they talked for a while. When they came out, Max asked me to take Holt to the airport because he was going home. In the car, I asked him, "Hey, AW, did you sign?" He said, "No, man, I didn't sign that contract." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I made up my mind before I came in here that unless they gave me a $1,000 signing bonus, I wasn't going to sign. But all they offered me was $1,500.
Oh, yeah.
I started to laugh, but then I realized that AW was serious. He didn't get it, and that was sad. Eventually, he did sign, but he didn't make the team.
Yikes.
Okay, so one of the biggest coups for the ABA during those early seasons was center Mel Daniels. He'd been an All American at the University of New Mexico, and after George Mikan taught him how to hit a hook shot, he signed a deal worth $36,000 to play for the Minnesota team, giving the league one of its first major wins against the NBA. On October 13th, 1967, the Oakland Oaks took the court against the Anaheim Amigos for the first game in
God,
ABA history.
two amazing names. I
Yeah.
love both of those.
The Oaks won 134 to 129 in front of just over 4,000 fans. Andy Anderson dropped 33 points for Oakland, and Les Selvage hit 4 threes. That kicked off what would be one of the wildest rides in pro sports. So we're going to end it there today. We have the early days of the beginning of the ABA is out of the way. Now, as I said, the main source for this episode and for all future episodes all future episodes in this series about the ABA, who knows, we might come back to it someday after years and years, is Terry Pluto's excellent oral history book, Loose Balls. So the way I plan to do this moving forward is we're not going to do so much like a straight history, like a timeline. I just want to do every team. So we're going to, or at least the famous, the most important team. So we're going to probably do 4 or 5 episodes covering every team, which should get us a pretty thorough covering of the ABA. But there are a couple that definitely need their own episodes. So I'm just going to spread them out and do, we've talked about a few of them before, but yeah, so we're going to do, it'll be kind of a smatter shot, I guess, but you should get the full history by the time we're finished. So
Love it.
that is how the ABA started. As you can see already, it is a pretty wild way to run a league, but a fun way to run a league. They had a lot of fun, like that ESPN book. Those guys had all the fun. Do you have any questions before we get out of here?
No, I am excited to dive in though. I kind of figured we would start talking about the ABA. It just feels like such a on brand thing for this podcast.
Right.
Because every time I've ever heard a story about the ABA, it's like something quirky and off the wall. So
For sure.
I'm excited to get into it. And if anybody has any ABA stories out there that we need to dive deeper into, let us know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we will be back in a couple weeks. Again, hopefully we have the YouTube channel squared away. I've been slacking on that. And also as of this recording, which technically is, when you hear this, it will already have happened. But as of this recording, in 4 days, I have to go to Canada. So
Gross.
it might be a little bit longer before that all gets, but we'll get it ironed out eventually. Right. So, and hopefully Dave will start doing social media like he keeps promising he's going to do.
I was waiting on the channel.
Oh, fair enough. All right. And also
I was just kidding. I don't know why I said gross about Canada. I don't have any problem with Canada. I take it back.
I'll talk. I have a proposition for you, Dave, about the channel, about the social media stuff that I'll talk to you off air. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Maybe we'll share that next time. See you next time where we'll probably, I think we're going to, let me just give a little tease here. Actually, let me pull up the book. 1 second.
Oh, exciting.
Hey, vamp.
If you haven't been to Canada, it's actually a really nice place to go. This would be a perfect time of the year to go. The very beautiful summers. An area like Banff would be really nice.
Did you say Banff?
Yeah, Banff. BANFF. Everybody look it up.
Like the acronym for badass MFer? I don't want to curse. What if our
as in nice. A nice area of Canada. It's great for hiking. It's great for camping. Lots of beautiful lakes and stuff. If you can't make it to Canada, then find your nearest local park or national park and drive there. If you haven't ever, just a PSA for anybody, if you haven't ever gone online, you can get a pass, like a season pass for all of your local parks, and you can go to any of them. It gets you like not free. I think it's like $100, 120, but it gets you admission to your like most local national park, and then all others if you want to take a road trip and go check out another one. Most of them are in like the West, so like Montana, California, all that stuff, which is frustrating for someone who lives in Oklahoma. There's no, like, we have trees. One national park. There's not a lot of trees, truly. But especially if you live in the West, I would suggest checking out the national park season pass.
Okay. Speaking of the West, I think the first team we're going to cover is going to go ahead and be the Oakland Oaks, which makes sense. That's what I thought I was going to say them, but I wanted to make sure that was the one I was going to look at first. So we're going to look at the Oakland Oaks. Spoiler alert, they're not in Oakland for very long. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Peace.